Architecture in its current incarnation is dying. The practice has been subdivided part by part and sold. The school, knowing this, continues to manufacture students with an outdated software. You are the product, paying to be manufactured by the school. The job that you were trained to do no longer exists. You are no longer needed. Perhaps all is not lost. This represents the greatest opportunity to push, to take agency and craft a future, your future, our future. ARK-ish is the way forward. ARK-ish is the and. ARK-ish is the practice of the hyphen between architecture and something else, anything else, everything else. ARK-ish is a way of thought. ARK-ish is a provocation to act. ARK-ish wants to encourage you, the students, to take learning into your own hands because the school has failed. Because the school teaches an architecture which is dead. Architects building buildings is dead. ARK-ish asks, what do you want the world to look like?
People have made hypercontextual buildings suitable for their environments from low-impact, sustainable materials for thousands of years without architects. So, there is no reason why that architecture cannot be liberated
ARK-ish
from
is not asking everyone to
building
leave,
buildings.
just those that this
Our
message
field has been
resonates with.
eroded by forces which we ourselves were complacent in designing. Through our own ignorance of economic, social, environmental, and legislative forces that are at play.
During the height of modernism, architecture was considered an elevated field, above the rest. Above construction, above quantity surveying, above project management, above property, and most certainly above real estate.
Bloody middlemen, bloody leeches.
Over the last century, we have not listened to consumer forces. Whilst our art is being treated like a product, we continue to treat it as an art form, pricing ourselves out of the market. This condition is exacerbated in a country where a building can and often is erected without an architect's official stamp of approval, as opposed to places like Germany or Italy, where an architect or structural engineer is required. The title is protected legislatively in Australia, although still bastardized. Software architect, naval architect, systems architect. However, the skills are not. Any draftsperson or building designer can design a building, and to be honest, do an excellent job for most of the people that they serve. Legislatively unprotected, we are insecure, rightly so. Everyone is trying to make a living. Everyone is trying to carve a place in society, even building designers. With the reduction of jargon and the broadening of the field due to specialization has been our demise. However, this is not a bad thing. Not protected legislatively, we are forced to reinvent ourselves constantly. It forces us to be agile. We must jump. We must not be afraid. Clinging on to what we know will mean extinction. If we turn to Hans Holland in a moment of crisis to reconsider what architecture could look like, if we denounce the hyper-specific thing that architecture has become, and consider for a moment that everything is architecture, what does the landscape look like today, viewed through that lens?
Assuming Holland's outlook that any practice with a spatial implication is architecture, then everything from Airbnb to Amazon and of course Uber becomes architecture today.
Holland concludes by saying, "The architecture of our time
will have to redefine itself and expand its means. Mainly areas outside the traditional building will enter the realm of architecture,
as architecture and
architects will enter new fields."
This was 1968. Rem Koolhaas's Thoughts on Bigness, published in 1995.
No longer believing that everything is architecture, he was urging for a strategic position to be taken through the act of careful retreat
from contested territory. Prescient to suggest this, that architecture will be the first solid that melts into air, ravaged by demographic trends, electronics, media, speed, the economy, leisure, the death of God, the hook, the phone, the fax, affluence, democracy, the end of the big story, preempting architecture's actual disappearance. This avant-garde is experimenting with a real or simulated virtuality.
ARK-ish agrees with Rem. However, ARK-ish does not share Rem's idea to tame the urban animal through a all-encompassing theory of bigness,
or any theory for that matter.
ARK-ish is an idea,
a way to think, to show what may be possible, and at its core it is a plea to speculate. As our consciousness is digitized, our lives straddle the physical and digital, the real and the imagined. Our central nervous system, as Mr. McLuhan would put it, extended once by the phone and now the internet. Through the practice of ARK-ish, we may give shape to the future with the lessons we have learnt from the past, the world of brick and mortar. We will be the transcribers of the upload, giving shape to the new world. This will be our profession. This will be our new job.
How does ARK-ish achieve this? Through speculation, story. At the core, architects are storytellers. Holland once put forward the pill and the air freshener as architecture. Why? Because these objects mediate our experience of the world. Similarly, so too do stories. How things are contextualized is ARK-ish. Speculation is avant-garde. It is a way to prototype the future at a low cost. Speculation is a vehicle of hope, a vision of what the world could be rather than is currently. If we decide something is not good enough or that something could be better, then it is our duty to speculate. The great speculators of our time have already dispersed out of sight. These people are hard to define. They operate at the boundaries of fields, at the intersection of many. As a result, their identities are many. They cannot be identified by one name or by one occupation. They sit in between fields or on the border, stitching back and forth between architectures of old and the prospect of new. These people are the ands. Most of the work done by traditional architects are speculation already. Competition entries, sketches, theories, mostly unpaid for, often not acknowledged as a true path in architectural institutions. ARK-ish seeks to legitimize this practice under the new name. One of those blokes that's already out there doing this sort of practice, this sort of thing is Liam Young, Aussie fella, over in the States at the moment running a master's program at ARK about this sort of thing. So he calls himself a speculative architect, bit of a storyteller, does a lot of fictional work, mainly in film. And I think it's super important because films allow us to experience these things that we normally wouldn't. Like, I'm not the bloke in 127 hours getting my arm chopped off, but might allow me to get a little snippet. So making these films about the future, and sort of in his case, the future of urbanism, allows people to take part in it, and this is so important, right? Because technology for change already exists, but it's sort of the adoption of it is sort of social, political, and economical, right? And then when he makes a film, we can try out the future and then sort of see whether the future works for us, you know. And I'd say he's definitely ARK-ish. Yeah, totally, Steve. And who's the other one? Oh yeah, Neri Oxman from MIT, and she's making all these weird art things, right? And it's so cool, and I don't know what it is, but it looks cool. But the thing is, when she talks about it, I understand, and it's like biology all over again. When she's talking, I understand it so clearly, but then I'll forget. I'll drop her link to the TED talk that she did, and she just explains it beautifully, I think. And so her stuff is just with silkworms making sculptures and stuff, and you can kind of imagine it being architecture, but it's just outside. I think she's definitely one of those people that is sort of doing ARK-ish, right?
What will you be?
Architect and filmmaker, architect and
Botanist, architect and developer, architect and
keep ARK-ish in mind when you eat, when you decide what to wear, when you decide how you speak. In your studios, chip away at the institution, wear your tutors down. Maybe your project is designed for Instagram or YouTube as opposed to paper. ARK-ish encourages you to speculate. Speculation is the only way to practice. The traditional modes of practice are crowded. Don't be afraid to leave the known behind. Embrace the unknown. Straddle worlds, straddle professions. You will be doing ARK-ish. No longer a guarded, insecure institution, but rather a distributed network of thinkers with human-animal spatial empathy. Good luck. So I was talking to my mate up in Cairns, and he's been bitching about the housing problem or whatever. And he just wants a big house, and he's sort of got himself a big plot of land. And like, there's lots of people like him, and sort of, it's not his fault, and because the telly's sort of been churning out all of these ads and all these shows about the big mansions. And so eventually, I think his notions of success have become linked to sort of square footage. Too much cleaning, I reckon, but it'd be so much more sustainable to live small, But it's a marketing issue. I bet if he had I bet he'd fire his architect if they tried to talk him into a small house.
yeah, probably, mate. Imagine if you got some politicians that had done architecture. I reckon they'd be good at sort of maybe mandating that you'd get a first home owners grant if you built a small house, or lawyers find some sort of loophole in the codes maybe. Yeah, mate, that'd be great. I think. Got some of these guys to go into different fields that really evolve architecture. Like, more than half my life is online these days. Would be cool if an architect made me a virtual house. Dreaming, mate.